Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Last month was the hottest ever since scientists have been keeping records. The deadly floods in Louisiana are being called a once-in-every-500-year event.
It's anything but an ordinary sight in Plainview Cemetery. Willie Brooks struggles to find the right words. The floodwater overturning vaults containing caskets.
I'm sorry. This is crazy.
In some cases, only empty outlines of graves remain.
It's impossible to fix this, correctly.
Willie says his grandmother's body is one of the missing.
We have no idea of even knowing where to start to even try to. It's gonna just boil down. They're gonna just start closing them up and putting them wherever.
Other families checking the grounds, hoping to find their loved ones still in place, only find an unbearable mess.
The water that flooded Baton Rouge has moved south to the town of Maurepas. The Louisiana National Guard went door to door on boat to check on residents still hunkered down in their homes. In the air, powerful helicopters from the Mississippi National Guard are laying down massive sandbags, working to control the floodwaters. But as the water recedes, the damage becomes more clear, and cleanup could be costly. Nearly 90% of the homes in Denham Springs suffered flood damage. As the water flows downstream, towns like Sorrento are being submerged.
The chief of police in Milwaukee says the city has calmed down since the shooting death of a black man last Saturday. Milwaukee erupted into violent protests Monday night, leading to heated confrontations and 6 arrests. This after a police officer fatally shot a black man during a traffic stop. Authorities say police body cameras show the man was armed and refused to drop his weapon. The investigation is ongoing, but for now, the city is quieting down.
11 people have been killed and 19 wounded by a Saudi-led coalition airstrike that hit a hospital in Yemen's northern Hajj province. The coalition says it has launched a probe into the attack amid mounting international condemnation of its airstrikes. The airstrike was the latest in a series of coalition raids that have hit civilian facilities, including a school on Saturday where 10 children were killed. The coalition launched its bombing campaign in March last year after Shiite Houthi rebels seized large parts of Yemen, including the capital Sana'a.
It hit hard, it hit fast, it hit with an intensity we hadn't seen before. Those are the words of Fire Chief Mark Hartwig describing the wildfire in San Bernardino County, California, that has forced a mass evacuation. The runaway fire exploded overnight, torching more than 30,000 acres and an untold number of homes. Nearly 83,000 people have been evacuated. 34,000 homes are in the path of the fire.
Massive flames tearing through miles of dry brush. Unstoppable. This is the nightmare wildfire Chief Mike Wachowski has always feared.
In my 40 years of fighting fire, I've never seen fire behavior so extreme.
Unprecedented, they say. The result of 5 years of drought. Powerful winds are driving the fire directly into desert communities, consuming local landmarks and home.
That building totally gone.
After home after home. Despite an all-out air and ground assault, the fire continues to grow. This plane dropped its entire load, 12,000 gallons of retardant. It barely made a dent. In less than 24 hours, the Blue Cut fire mushroomed to 46 square miles, the size of the city of San Francisco, so wide an area that firefighters could not reach homes in time. Ronnie Moore watched helplessly as his house was destroyed. And for a second day, the main road between Southern California and Las Vegas remained impassable.
Russian Su-34 bombers based at the Hamadan Air Base in Iran have carried out a second day of airstrikes on Islamic State targets in Syria. Russia's defense ministry said that more than 150 militants have been killed and 2 command posts have been destroyed in the strikes. Moscow announced on Tuesday that Russian bombers had started using their airbase in Iran.
Pyongyang says it is reprocessing spent fuel rods and has no plans to stop nuclear tests as long as perceived U.S. threats remain. The DPRK's Atomic Energy Institute said it is producing highly enriched uranium necessary for nuclear arms and power as scheduled. The statement tallies with claims made in June by the UN nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, that the DPRK appeared to have reopened the Yongbyon nuclear plant.
Medical charity Doctors Without Borders has decided to evacuate its staff from 6 hospitals in Yemen after Saudi Arabia bombarded a medical center in the northwest of the country a few days ago. The MSF says it believes the hospitals in the provinces of Sa'ada and Hajjah are unsafe for both patients and staff. It also says that the organization has lost its confidence in the ability of Saudi Arabia and its allies to prevent civilian casualties. The MSF has added that the decision to withdraw is never taken lightly. On Monday, Saudi fighter jets pounded a hospital in Hajjah province, killing nearly 20 people, including 1 MSF staffer. The hospital bombing drew international condemnations. Nearly 9,600 Yemeni people, mostly civilians, have lost their lives since Riyadh started the deadly war on its neighbor in March 2015.
At least 3 police officers were killed and about 100 people wounded by a car bomb at a police station in the eastern Turkish city of Elazig on Thursday. It came just hours after a similar bombing killed 3 people in the city of Van. No group immediately claimed responsibility, but the defense minister accused the PKK of being behind the attack. The Kurdish militant group has carried out dozens of attacks on police and military posts in the southeast of Turkey since 2015.
Syrian government warplanes have bombed Kurdish positions in the divided northeastern city of Hasakeh. At least 13 people, including children and women, were killed. Thursday's was the first of such strikes against the Kurdish-held area of Syria in the country's 5-year-old civil war. It follows heavy clashes on Wednesday between Kurdish fighters who control 2/3 of the city and pro-government militia who control the rest. The two sides share a common enemy, and that's the self-proclaimed Islamic State. But there have been tensions and sometimes armed clashes between them in Hasakeh. The Kurdish militia People's Protection Unit, or YPG, said it would not be silent over what it calls an act of flagrant aggression. It is also a key U.S. ally in the fight against ISIL.
Fighting has intensified in the northeast of Syria between government forces and Kurdish militia. On Friday, Syria military jets pounded U.S.-backed Kurdish forces in the city of Hasakeh for a second day. That was despite the U.S. sending aircraft there to protect American Special Ground Forces. The fighting this week in the city has been the most violent confrontation between the Kurdish militia and government forces in more than 5 years of civil war. Also on Friday, Russian warships in the Mediterranean Sea fired cruise missiles at targets near Aleppo, a further sign of Moscow's broadening military efforts in Syria.
2 days ago, U.S. Air Force Secretary Deborah Lee James told Sputnik regarding the 50 to 70 B-61 tactical gravity nuclear bombs stored at Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, "We do have nuclear weapons, and those nuclear weapons are safe and secure, and we are confident in that." Now, Debka is reporting the United States has begun secretly evacuating the tactical nuclear weapons it had stockpiled at the southern Turkish airbase of Incirlik and is transporting them to U.S. bases in Romania. Is this a reaction to the failed coup, or is there a larger strategy at play here? As this reaction finally comes after the worst foreign policy administration in U.S. history remained quiet as power was cut to the Incirlik airbase and was put on lockdown while hordes of Turkish protesters gathered outside the base over the purported CIA link to the recent coup attempt. A link that winds its way back to Fethullah Gulen and his movement, the same Gulen who is protected by the Obama administration and maintains a charter school empire in the United States that has angered labor unions while siphoning money from the American taxpayers through those charter schools to fund his movement. The results of the failed coup in Ankara, Turkey that claimed 294 lives and saw thousands arrested has awarded President Erdogan unlimited dictatorial control over his country. The New York Times reported Turkey said on Wednesday that that it would empty its prisons of tens of thousands of criminals to make room for the wave of journalists, teachers, lawyers, and judges rounded up in connection with last month's failed coup. Numerous sources are now confirming that the Incirlik nukes are being moved to the Deveselu Air Base in Romania. Meanwhile, 2,000 NATO troops have conducted airborne training operations in Poland, while Obama pledged 1,000 extra troops to Poland. Russian President Vladimir Putin is urging Erdogan to pick a side as the proxy situation in Ukraine, funded by the United States.
We've invested over $5 billion to assist Ukraine in these and other goals that will ensure a secure and prosperous and democratic Ukraine.
Is it possible that the majority of the civilian casualties that you're talking about were actually civilian casualties that were the victims of the Ukrainian army and the oligarch that financed 1/3 of their army at one point? Is that possible?
If I could say two things. First, I think it's highly unlikely on the basis of the reports that we've received from the United Nations and from the OSCE. Second, I want to underscore again why this conflict started. It started because Russia moved troops and weapons and so forth into Eastern Ukraine.
Just so you know, Madam Secretary, the Russians would suggest it started when there was a violent overthrow of an elected government.
Right. I don't make it a point of listening to President Putin's claims as a general rule. I don't find them credible.
I think that if you are our representative, you should pay attention to everybody's claims, and you should refute them if they can be refuted rather than dismissing them.
And quarterbacked by George Soros, an escalation now forcing Putin's hand as 40,000 Russian troops are now sitting on the Ukraine's eastern border. Our media and government should be working to de-escalate this nuclear powder keg with rational reporting and diplomacy. However, Obama golfs, Hillary thumbs her nose at Putin, and George Soros sways public opinion to lead the world to the razor's edge of World War III, just in time to hijack the U.S. presidential election.